Hello YouTubers, this is Gold Standard 0924 coming at you with my 10th installment of TV's Forgotten Gems for today. Now, it's been a couple weeks since I've been in a hiatus, but I haven't really been doing Forgotten Gems in quite a while, so I figured, why not jump back on the saddle and continue on with the Forgotten Gems series. So, in this 10th installment, this is going to be a little different since the previous 9 Forgotten Gems I've done were shows that were live action. So, I'm going to drift away from the live action aspect of things and discuss about a particular cartoon that I enjoyed growing up. And as a matter of fact, this particular cartoon came out 10 years ago, and to think that this year would mark the 10th anniversary of this particular cartoon. And in this video, I'll be discussing none other than Megas XLR. So, Megas XLR, which the acronyms for XLR was Large Robot. So, this cartoon came out around the spring of 2004 on Cartoon Network. And basically, the show originated from an animated short entitled Lowbrow. And basically, that animated short debuted on the Cartoon Summerfest, which was a contest where there was a plethora of animated shorts that were attempting to be greenlighted into a full-length TV series. And it turns out that Codename Kids Next Door would end up winning that contest and have its own TV show. And despite that, Lowbrow was one of those animated shorts which would be the prototype and would go on to become Megas XLR. Now, so Test Drive, which was the pilot to Megas XLR, was kind of a more of a extended version or a more detailed version of the Lowbrow episode. And some of the differences between those two, the animation was drastically different compared to the Lowbrow in the way that the animation layout was a lot brighter in Lowbrow, unlike in Megas XLR. And also to note, in the test drive episode, in the final product, we get to see a scene where Kiva was actually fighting in the intergalactic battle in the future against the Glorft. And basically in Lowbrow, you didn't get to see that scene, but the scene just starts off with Jamie and Coop finding the robot known as Megas in a pile of junkyard. So there are some scenes that were kept from Lowbrow that were carried over in the test drive, just with the more extended version with slightly altered dialogue. But mostly the dialogue was the same for the most part. Um, but eventually, Kiva, who was originally the pilot to the untested Megas robot, eventually gets sent back in time and into the 21st century, where Jamie and Coop discover the robot just like they did in Lowbrow. But then eventually, by the time Kiva managed to make it into the 21st century, Coop had managed to make some reconfigurations to the Megas engineer, and thus, because of that, Kiva was unable to gain access to the Megas robot, and now Coop eventually becomes the responsible or becomes the main pilot for the Megas. So, so basically, Coop, Jamie, and Kiva are the 3 main characters of the series, and they fight against the Glorft, which are this evil, villainous clan from the future, and eventually they follow Kiva over the 21st century. And their leader, Gorath, is one of the main villains of that show. So eventually, they eventually have this goal to take over the world and just basically wrecking havoc in the city of Jersey, and that was the main setting of that particular show. Um, so basically, Megas XLR, just a very tremendous show. Really enjoyed growing up. Now, technically, I was a teenager at the time, so I think I could, the demographics of the show was kind of catered to me because the show kind of felt very grown up in a way. Just the animation, some of the characters in the show, just were a little more adulterated, a little more, it was kind of like kind of coming of age in a way. Um, and this cartoon was a play on the last satirical. It was played, like a satire of sorts. Just parodying on pop culture. Um, Parodies mainly, popular Western animated cartoons as well as anime that came from Japan. And some of the parodies that they've done throughout the course of this 26 episode series. Some of them, there was like an episode where they parodied Halo, and basically there was yeah. So that episode was called "Bug in the System," and um, and basically they had this world called Ring World, which was in outer space, and eventually they were Coop along with their friends eventually traveled to the Ring World, which was obviously based loosely on the Halo, which was derived from the rings of Saturn. So yeah, so the Halo game was very popular at the time, and basically I think Megas XLR did some parodies on that, and the second Halo game came out around the same year Megas XLR premiered. Yeah, so Halo's like one of the most popular video game franchises at the turn of the new millennium. So yeah, so countercultural reference at the time, but still kind of holds up to this day. Um, they also did some parodies, like Sailor Moon in the episode called Ultra Chicks, and basically they were called the Ultra Cadets in the show. So yeah, it was pretty obvious if you've watched a lot of cartoons and animes, if you're a really big fan at that. Yeah, so they were very materialistic, like Sailor Moon was. Wearing a lot of these mini skirts, and they all look attractive and stuff. So yeah, so they parodied Sailor Moon. They also did. They also parodied Voltron or Power Rangers, Sentai, whatever you want to think of as parodies. So yeah, so they brought in like the S Force, which were like these group of super intergalactic heroes, and they both have this multicolored Hispanic suits that they were wearing to kind of distinguish themselves. Um, and they also accompanied with the giant robot that Voltron and Power Rangers both share. So it was yeah, like I said, some of the parodies were pretty obvious. Um, and definitely just a very outstanding show, very hilarious. There are some recurring gags that kind of had you cracking up in a way. There was episode. Yeah, there's like I said, it's a recurring gag. They occur within a lot of episodes or every few episodes, but basically there are some notable moments that has you laughing your ass off. So there's moments towards the end of the episode, when Coop gets his ass whooped by some of the random villains of the week. Basically, what happens, Coop goes on a rampage. He snaps. He rants and rambles by summarizing all the events that they went through from the beginning of the episode and how it all culminates into this finale. And Coop would go on and rant and rant. It happens in like pretty much every episode, so you couldn't get away with that. But yeah, so he rants to some of the villains of the week, monsters. Um, I can't really think of any ones in particular, but there are a lot of other ones. and they also did a parody on the Pop TV footage. Basically, Pop TV was actually a parody based loosely on MTV, and basically, during like a fight scene, they would always cut off to Pop TV where they're like advertising, and every time they show that sort of footage, there are some instances where the Pop TV logo gets destroyed or the satellite gets dissolved into this weird goo or something. Something happens to Pop TV that they ended up like destroying it and just really venting out their frustration. And any time that the Pop TV logo or satellite gets destroyed, um, there's like random civilians just really celebrating, and and basically the reason for that being a very interesting note is that Pop TV, when I discussed that, like I said, it was based on MTV. Basically, the creators of Megas XLR had another animated program that came a couple years prior, entitled Downtown, which came out in the 1999, going into 2000, somewhere around the turn of the new millennium. But but apparently, the creators of Megas XLR were really infuriated when MTV canceled Downtown, and it only ran for like 13 episodes. So Megas XLR actually ran a little longer than that. Maybe not long enough, but a little longer, like 26 episodes specifically. So eventually, Pop TV was like a common theme that eventually, somehow, some way, they just end up dismantling the logo or anything that has the logo on it. Um, so yeah, it really goes to show you just how much they really hated MTV. It's one of those few instances of a fine piece of art, that they really embellished on. So yeah, so the Pop TV one is really notable. Um, there was also another instance where there would be like this random kid, and he'd be wearing some glasses and holding a slushie and slurping on it. Yeah, so it's another thing that happens during a fight scene, and they cut to the little kid, and whenever there's like this really gruesome spot that happens during that fight scene, that particular kid would be like slurping the slushie, and then he'll be saying this one simple catchphrase, and it goes something like "cool." So yeah, that's basically all he says, and it happens throughout every few episodes or every episode in particular. But it's another recurring theme that occurs throughout the series. But those are the notable three I could think of. So, with the recurring gags aside, so this show only got 26 episodes. It ran for 2 seasons. Show got canceled for unknown reasons, but it's mostly attributed to low ratings, um, which is kind of really a shame because I really do think this show kind of holds the test of time. Um, now, I've been searching over like some of the internet to see if there were any outlines or plans for a season 3 if that were to happen, but obviously, Megas XLR was canceled after 2 seasons, so I would really like to see if there were any plans that some of the creators produced, or at least thought out in the outline had they went for a third season. And it's one of those what if scenarios, so to speak. Um, Now, I want to also discuss about some of the voiceover cast because some of the voice actors on the show, there are a lot of notable celebrities on here. Um, Now you got the main actors. So you had Stephen J. Blum, who provided the voice of Jamie. So yeah, so a lot of people know Stephen Blum for the voiceover of the host of Toonami named Tom. So yeah, so he's done a lot voiceover work on a lot of projects, especially some popular anime titles. He also co-worked with Wendy Lee, who voiced Kiva on Megas, and they both worked together on The Big O and Cowboy Bebop. So those are like some of the two notable anime titles that they've actually worked with each other on. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. I'm sure there are a lot of other voiceover actors that have worked cohesively on numerous projects together. So maybe it's more or less not of a surprise, but I thought at the same time it was pretty interesting. Um, there are some supporting characters on the show that were voiced by other notable celebrities. You had Peter Cullen. A lot of people know him as Optimus Prime from the Transformers franchise. Yeah, so he actually provided some voice work in one episode or so. I can't really remember some of the villains because they only appeared like one or two episodes. Uh, the girl that played Jamie's girlfriend in that one episode, Dude, Where's My Head? Yeah, so basically, Jamie dates with this girl and basically gets mistaken by by his best friend Coop because the girl thought that Jamie's name was Jamie was Coop and it kind of led to this sort of there was like a misunderstanding there. And surprisingly enough, the girl that played Gina in that one-off episode was voiced by none other than Seth MacFarlane's sister, Rachel MacFarlane. And basically, she did some voiceover work for the daughter in American Dad. Another one of Seth MacFarlane's popular shows. Yeah, so they actually did some work there. Yeah, I actually didn't even know about that until I looked it up. So, yeah, pretty interesting. Um, and I think in that same episode in Dude, Where's My Head? Yeah, so Jamie and Coop, I always wondered about their relationship, their friendship, because it seemed like it was very dysfunctional. Yeah, so Jamie and Coop, they were been friends for a long time, but Coop kept bringing up the fact that Jamie never attended any of Coop's scheduled hangouts. Like there was times where Jamie didn't show up during Coop's birthday, or the time where Jamie bailed on Coop when they were supposed to watch a movie. Um, yeah, so it's a very dysfunctional friendship. I'm surprised they were still around after all those years. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just a very awkward friendship to say the least. But um, but yeah, surprised that they were actually still buddies after all those years. Whatever that they were doing, they never one of them never showed up and stuff like that. They were always neglected. Um, yeah, so that was basically Dude, Where's My Head? There also Tia Carrara actually did some voiceover work for one of the bounty hunters that was kind of like a rival to Kiva. And yeah, Tia Carrara, people know her from the Wayne's World movies and the first run syndicated show entitled Relic Hunter. So I'm not sure if anyone remembers that show. Um, yeah, so Tia Carrara actually did voiceover work in one episode. Bruce Campbell as well. Yeah, he portrayed like the owner of the Intergalactic Wrestling Federation. It was called something like that, but yeah, he appeared in that episode. Um, yeah, so there are some notable voiceover work, and just the voiceover cast is just very outstanding, very diverse. Um, yeah, so I gotta give props to some of the voiceover casts. They just really did a great job contributing to the show. The last episode was like a two-parter entitled "Rear View Mirror Mirror." In that episode, Coop ends up getting transported into this alternate dimension where he discovers that his evil counterpart, along with another evil counterpart of Kiva, were ruling the world. And it has this sort of post apocalyptic setting of the city of Jersey, which Megas XLR takes place in. And basically, Coop has to find a way to get out, and eventually he wasn't the only one that got transported. And as a matter of fact, Gorath, who was the leader of the Glorf, eventually, they both put their differences aside. They both worked together to get out that to escape the dimension that they were in, and which they did at the second part of Rearview Mirror Mirror. And eventually, they destroy, they fight along some of the evil comrades from the other dimension, and it looked like Coop and his crew, along with the Glorft, were suddenly in cahoots somehow, or it seemed like they were forging some sort of alliance and trying to put the try to put some of the past behind them. And it looked like it was gonna be like in that direction, but eventually, Coop, who was inside the Megas, eventually trips over an object, and then Gorath got really pissed off, and as well as the Glorfs. So eventually, they bailed on them, and all that all that alliance that they were teasing throughout the two-parter was completely negated by the end of the series. Um, so that's really how Megas XLR ended. So Megas XLR, just a really tremendous show. No one will probably never know just why the show got canceled too soon. Um, yeah, so just a really tremendous show, like I said. Just a great cast. Some of the jokes were really hilarious. I think they really played up the satirical portion really well. So yeah, just Megas XLR, just a really great show. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Um, Till next time, this is the Gold Standard Caesar 924 signing out.